The Saudi obsession in our media. I'm Brian Lilly with TheRebel.media. I'm no fan of Saudi Arabia. I have no plans to go there. I've known too many people that have, both men and women. They've gone over to teach or take a contract. And the stories they tell are ghastly when it comes to how foreigners are treated in Saudi Arabia, how women are treated, and of course, religious minorities. Saudi Arabia funds mosques around the world, but building a Christian church? That's forbidden. Now, you didn't hear too much about the Saudis and their human rights record in the Canadian media until a little while ago. But now it's become an obsession for some, all because of an arms deal. A Canadian company, a private company, not the government of Canada, secured a contract to build light armored vehicles that would be sold to Saudi Arabia. These are the same vehicles sold to the Canadian military and the American military. Since the election, there's been a nonstop series of articles questioning why the deal would even be allowed, considering Saudi Arabia's human rights violations. There's no evidence that the Saudis have ever used this type of vehicle on their civilian population. They haven't been running over protesters. Still, the push by the media to have this contract canceled by doing away with the export permit, well, it is an obsession for reasons that escape me. At a speech by Stéphane Dion on Canada's new foreign policy, the Global Affairs Minister was asked about the sale several times.
Last, you said that your government can't cancel commercial contracts signed by a previous government. But in 1993, the new Liberal government, then under Jean Chrétien, did cancel a contract to purchase helicopters that were to replace the Sea Kings, and they had to pay $500 million in cancellation fees. So if that Liberal government could do it, why can't yours?
Yes, we may do it. It's not impossible.
Why won't you this time?
Because there would have to be penalties for it.
And Minister, we were at the Saudi embassy on Thursday night. I saw you talking for quite a long time with the ambassador. Did you raise the issue of human rights that evening?
There were other questions, but you get the point. Nobody wanted to ask him about the other issues in his speech, just this. Now, I'm trying to figure out why this obsession has taken hold. The Liberal government, by the way, says that while yes, Saudi Arabia has a horrible track record on human rights, this deal was signed and they will not cancel it or that would damage Canada's international trading reputation and, by the way, put 2,000 people out of work. But still, the media pushes on. They want the deal canceled. The Globe and Mail, CBC, Global, they've all pushed hard on this like it's a campaign. Meanwhile, we have huge trade deals with other human rights abusers and nothing. I understand that this is an arms deal, but like I said, there's no credible evidence Saudi Arabia is using these vehicles to oppress people. That evidence goes back decades, so let's look at some other facts. Canada's trade relationship with Saudi Arabia is pretty small. In 2015, we exported $1.1 billion worth of goods and services to the Saudis, and we imported $2 billion worth of goods, mostly oil. That's not a huge trading relationship when you consider there's $1 billion a day that goes back and forth between Canada and the United States. All right, let's compare that to another major human rights abuser. I'm talking about China, of course. We exported $20 billion worth of goods and services to China, and at the same time, we imported $65 billion worth of the same. China is a horrible human rights abuser, so why no outcry at our growing trade relations with China? In fact, I recall that when Stephen Harper was first elected, he was chastised in the media, the Globe and Mail in particular, on a regular basis for upbraiding the Chinese on human rights. The outcry was that we shouldn't be doing this, it'll damage business ties. China warmly welcomed the Trudeau government to power. No lectures on human rights for Justin's favorite country other than Canada. Now, closer to home, we could look to Cuba. There's more than $1 billion worth of business that goes on between Canada and Cuba, and this is a country that still severely restricts personal freedoms. In fact, a whole group of activists were arrested for protesting just before U.S. President Barack Obama showed up for a visit last week. Are there regular protests in the media about Canada's trade relationship with Cuba, or about the thousands upon thousands of Canadians that go there each year on vacation, spending their money to prop up a dictatorial regime that oppresses dissent and doesn't allow press freedom? No, not at all. In fact, on the issue of press freedom, I looked up where these three countries fall on the Reporters Without Borders Press Freedom Index. They're all oppressors of press freedom, but Saudi Arabia is actually somehow mildly better than the other two. The Saudis rank at 164th on the Press Freedom Index, Cuba at 169, China 176. According to Freedom House, an American organization that ranks personal freedom around the world, all three of these countries are rated as not free with very low scores, the lowest or closest to the lowest on civil liberties. And yet while Canada does booming business with China and Cuba, there's nary a peep from the media about human rights, definitely not a campaign anyway. This one deal with Saudi Arabia has become the issue. Why? Best I can guess it, probably because it involves the military or the sale of military equipment. And there's long been an anti-military edge in much of the Canadian media. That's about the only thing that I can think of, because it can't just be human rights. Because if that were the case, Canada would be trading with far fewer countries than we do now, and contracts by the likes of Power Corporation and others in China might be getting more scrutiny. I may not like Saudi Arabia, but if we accept doing business with these other countries, then why not the Saudis?
Thanks for watching. Click here to never miss a Rebel update. Want even more of the Rebel? Well, click here to become a premium member.